Si ALS Learner JC is a proof that life offers second chances. Nagkakamali pero naitatama at patuloy tayo to dream, set our goals, work hard for it, stick to it until we reach the success and the happiness that we hope for. Ako po muli si Sir A, ang inyong ALS coach dito lang sa Alternative Learning System sa DepEd TV.
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang itulay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang itulay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICTS Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del P. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na Pivot ang ginagamit sa ating itulay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Hello po, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ako po ulit si Tutor Gilbert, ang inyong kaagapay at makakasama po sa pag-aaral at sa ALS Learning Strand number 5 po, which is Understanding Self and Society po. Bago po ako magsimula, binabati ko po nais ko po magpasalamat sa patuloy na pagsuporta ng aking principal sa Las Piñas City National Senior High School Talondos Campus, Ma'am Jennifer T. Irispe, ang aming SDS po ng Division ng Las Piñas, Dr. Joel T. Torrecampo po, at ang aming ASDS po, si Dr. Juan C. Ovierna. Binabati ko rin po ang aming education program specialist po sa ALS, si Ma'am Sabido po. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat po. So, ngayon po, I'll be sharing my screen po, my presentation. Ayun po. Sana po nakikita nyo na po yung aking presentation. Ulitin ko po, ako po si Tutor Gilbert po. I would like to greet Ma'am Kyle Rose Celorin, watching from Iligaw National High School po. Magandang hapon po. Ma'am Mary Sebastian, magandang hapon din po. And watching from Ma'am Rina Cachuela, Bulahan, watching from DepEd Jensen po. Magandang hapon po. So, bago po tayo magsimula for this afternoon po, ayun po, balikan muna natin. Let's have a quick recap about what we discussed last week. If nasubaybayan niyo po yung Understanding Self and Society po last week po, yung Are You Getting Married po na topic. So let's have a quick recap about this kind of topic last week po. So tingnan natin kung naaalala niyo pa po ba yung napag-usapan natin at natalakay natin last week. Muli po, ang aking pong mga references at resources po ay makikita po sa ICT for ALS po at sa DepEd Commons po. Maaari niyo pong makita ito. Okay, so let's have a quick recap po. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Nelia Ales po. Okay, so tingnan natin, balikan natin. What do you call to the legal dissolution or termination and ending of illegally valid marriage? Clue, wala po niyan sa Philippines. Meron po ba? Ano po kaya ang sagot? Ayan po, very good. Divorce po. So when we do speak of the legal dissolution or termination and ending of a legally valid marriage po, ito po ay tinutukoy natin as divorce po based on our discussion last week po. So, we don't have divorce in the Philippines. Yan po. Hi, Ma'am Bibilin Ludovis Magdamit. Yan, last week po, napaka-active po ni Ma'am. Tama po, Ma'am Bibilin, that it's divorce. Salamat po at naalala niyo pa po yung discussion at talakayan natin last week. Next po, under the religious marriage po, who do you think is the solemnizing officer na pwede or who is authorized to conduct marriage po or religious marriage po? Sino kaya yung pwedeng mag-solemnize nung marriage when we do speak of religious marriage? Ayan po, very good po. So when we do speak of religious marriage, the solemnizing officer will be the priest, di ba po? So in Catholic religion, for other religions, it could be, for some instances, pwede pong pastor. Tama po, very good po. Pastor, ayan po. Yan, si Ma'am Bibilin po ulit. Tama po ulit, no? So, pare, pero letter I po, di ba po? Priest, rabbi, pastor po ang pwedeng tumayo bilang solemnizing officer po when we do speak of religious marriage. Next po, another quick recap po. Yan, tama po, Ma'am Lynn. Tantay, priest po. What is the rightful age to get married? Ano kaya yung taon or ilang taon kaya pwede nang magpakasal yung couple or yung dalawang magkasintahang nag-iibigan po? So, ayan, very good po. 18. So, at the age of 18, pwede na po silang magpakasal. However, ano po yung nire-require? What is the legal document na nire-require? Ayan, 21 and above, sabi po ni Ma'am Bibilin. So, rightful, wala nang legal document na hinihingi. So, what is the legal document na hinihingi po? According to the Family Code of the Philippines, ay yung parent consent po. If they are below 21, above 18, and below 21 years of age po. Good. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Rhea Kanya Quesada Tupas. Magandang hapon po. Magandang hapon rin po, Ma'am Lindsay Santos. Okay, so ngayong hapon po, for this afternoon, we are going to discuss another topic which is known to be as building a relationship with others po. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Esmeralda Buktot Buniel from Butuan City or Division of Butuan City. Magandang hapon po. So building a relationship with others. So or in the senior high school lesson, it's in philosophy, it's intersubjectivity, sharing our intersubjective states po. So this will be our topic for this afternoon. So let's make meaning first. Bigyan po muna natin ng kahulugan or ng daloy, bakit ba natin inaaral yung ganitong topic? So when we do speak of building relationship with others, bakit po kaya mahalaga na tayo po ay mag-establish or mag-build ng relationship with others? Ano po kaya yung dahilan? Why it is important to build relationship with others? Ayan po, very good. So when we do speak of building relationship with others, ano po yung sinasabi doon? Of course, sabi nga ni Aristotle, we are a social animal. We are a social animal. So we need others for our own existence po. So parang di ba po sa quote na walang sino man ang nabubuhay para sa sarili lamang. So we need other for us to self-preserve, for us para magpatuloy sa buhay. Thus, this lesson is very important, specifically in our day-to-day existence and even to our ALS learner po. So what are the lesson objectives for this afternoon po? One, describe how you see yourself, of course. So when we relate ourselves with other people, anong meron, dapat kilala muna natin at yung sa sarili natin. So the intrapersonal, di ba? Yung intrapersonal characteristics ng isang tao. The second will be identify ways on how we can improve our self-concept, disclose your feelings properly, identify the benefits of self-disclosure or in other terms, self-revelation, explain key principles in communication, and identify common communication misconceptions. So these are our learning objectives for this afternoon po sa ating understanding self and society. So our lesson 1 will be, how do you see yourself? So sabi nga, when we relate ourselves with other, when we build ourselves with other, ika nga, you cannot share what you do not have. So anong una nating dapat gawin? Dapat kilala muna natin yung sarili natin. Dapat marunong tayong makipag-communicate sa sarili natin when we do speak of this lesson. Magandang hapon po, Sir Yanni Marquez, ang ating tutor po kahapon po sa math, kasama po ni Ma'am Ses. Watching from Las Piñas City po. Okay, so ayan po. So when we do speak of how do we see ourselves po, anong meron, we always look for, or we always identify self-concept. So when we do speak of self-concept, it refers to the general perception of yourself with regard to your behavior, abilities, and unique characteristics po. So that is how we define self-concept. So it refers to the knowledge or our perception, pagkilala natin sa sarili natin with regard to our behavior, yung mga kakayahan po ba natin, ay nire-recognize po ba natin when we do speak of self-concept. Okay, so that's how we define self-concept. Okay, so in understanding, when we do speak of self-concept, there are different aspects kung paano natin kinikilala yung sarili natin. So, what are the different aspects of self-concept? The first aspect of self-concept is what? The physical characteristics. So, this is how we perceive ourselves, gaano natin kakilala yung sarili natin. So, the first one, again, will be the physical characteristics. So, Ma'am Lindsay Santos, ito po ay pang-grade school po ng ALS, Alternative Learning System po. So, when we do speak of physical characteristics, of course, it refers to the person's physical appearance or how he or she looks. So, or how he or she, yun nga, looks, ano yung physical appearance nung tao or natin. So, it refers to the self-concept. So, isa sa mga bagay na tinitingnan ng tao and even the way we represent ourselves, of course, we are referring to our physical characteristics. So, yung physical appearance. So, ano ba yung mga halimbawa ng physical characteristics or physical appearance? Meron ba? Patingin nga po. Ano kaya yung mga halimbawa ng mga physical characteristics na taglay-taglay natin? Ayan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn Tantay, outside appearance. Gaya po ng ano po kaya when we do speak of outside appearance. Ayan po, with regard to our skin color, if our skin color is fair, hindi ba po? White, hindi ba po? So, that ito po ay tumutugon sa physical characteristic na taglay-taglay natin. Ano pa kaya? Aside from that, yan ma'am, tama po, skin color, tama po Ma'am Lynn Tantay, maraming salamat po sa pagpa-participate. Aside from our skin color, physical characteristics po, ano pa po kaya? Ayan, yung itsura nung tao, hindi ba? So sometimes, tinitingnan natin kung yung tao ay maganda, gwapo, pogi, hindi ba? So may mahabang buhok. So sabi nga kanina ni Ma'am Lynn Tantay, physical characteristics refers to the outside appearance of a person or the physical appearance of a person. Second po, ayan po. Yan, tama po, Sir Carl. Height, tama po. So, kung matangkad, opo. So, kung hindi gaanong katangkad, so, that refers also to the physical characteristic. The second will be intellectual characteristics. So, pag sinabi naman po natin intellectual characteristics, ano naman daw po ito? So, intellectual characteristics refer to a person's intellectual capacity or how he or she uses his or her reason or rational sense. So sometimes we refer intellectual characteristics if, diba, halimbawa sa classroom, sa mga classmates, sa mga AL students or sa regular students, yung mga classmates natin based on intellectual characteristics, we regard them as what? Bright, hindi ba? Smart, hindi ba? So that refers to the intellectual characteristics or kung paano mag-reason out yung tao when we do speak of intellectual characteristics. So, in presenting ourselves to other people, of course, we also present ourselves based on intellectual characteristic. So, we have physical characteristic. Second will be the intellectual characteristic. Third aspect of self-concept, what do you think? Meron na tayong intellectual characteristic, meron na tayong physical character. Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn, Tantay, braining, di ba? Smart, bright, hindi ba? So of course, we disregard some derogatory remarks or negative concepts. So our English teachers always instructed us or taught us na anong meron, we can use politically correct terms, di ba? So instead of saying derogatory characteristics, we can use politically correct terms. So halimbawa, student with learning disability, so instead of marking them with derogatory remarks. So the third one will be, yan po, social characteristics. So parang people smart when we do speak of social characteristics. There are people who are not blessed with, yan, struggling learner. Tama po, Sir Carl Gerard, salamat po. So, struggling learner is also a politically correct term po doon sa mga mga student nating nahihirapang makasabay doon sa normal na diskusyon ng lesson. So, balik tayo for social characteristics. Yan, it refers, or social characteristics refer to the way a person interacts with other people. So, sometimes we call them people smart. Hindi ba? So, when we do speak of social interaction with other people, their social characteristics, they are very good in interacting with other people. So, again, we have physical characteristic, we have intellectual characteristic, and the third one, we have social characteristics. Fourth will be, yan po, refers to the skills. So, when we do speak of skills, ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Ano kaya, when we do speak of skills, ano kaya yung meaning or ibig sabihin ng skills? Yan, sabi ulit ni Ma'am Lynn Tantay, intrapersonal, friendly, yun yung sa social characteristic. How about the skills? When we do speak of skills. Yan, very good. So when we do speak of skills, it refers to the person's talent or person's talents or what he or she is good at. So dun sa picture, di ba, may mga taong magagaling kumanta, may mga taong magagaling sa sports like swimming, like basketball. Hello po, good afternoon po Ma'am Cez Padilla from SDO Las Piñas po. Ayan po. So this skills refers to a person's talent or what he or she is good at. So sometimes we need to understand and we need to know also kung ano yung mga talents natin. Or sabi nga ni Sir Carl, abilities. Salamat po. Very good po. Ano yung mga abilities na taglay-taglay natin. So, when we do speak of self-concept, these are also the things that we need to be aware of ourselves. Hello po. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Diana Rose Dayag-Dullas. Ayun po. Next, panglima po, so we have physical characteristic, we have intellectual characteristic, we have social characteristic, we have skills or abilities. Yung sinasabi, hello po, Sir Efren, and panglima, yung social roles. So when we do speak of social roles, ano pong ibig sabihin ng social roles? When we do speak of social role, ano po kaya ang ibig sabihin nito? Na dapat alam natin that these are the things that we need to be aware of our own self. So, when we do speak of social role, yan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn Oscoto kanina, natural talents and expertise. Tama po. These are expertise pag sinabi nating talents. You develop to perform. So, pag social rules naman po, Ayan, very good po. These are the things, or it refer to the part of part people play as a member of a social group. So ito yung mga bagay na ginagampanan natin. That's why yung part, not parte ng katawan, but rather ginagampanan natin sa isang social group. So, yes, ma'am, community involvement. So when we do speak of role, what is very crucial when we identify social role, there should be what? A social group. So, para ma-determine mo kung ano yung mga bagay na dapat mong gawin depending on the social group. So, ano yung mga halimbawa ng social group? So, halimbawa, social group, family. Actually, it's a social group and even a social institution, the smallest unit of a social institution. So, sa social group na family, ano ka doon? Ano yung status mo doon? What is your status? Or could be, in other terms, what could be your category? So anak ka ba? Tatay ka ba? Nanay ka ba? Or bunsong kapatid ka ba? So when we do speak of your status, and with that, when you identify your place in the social group, hindi ba? So your status or your category in the social group, anong meron? Then you can identify kung ano yung role mo, ano yung parte ng ginagampanan mo. So halimbawa, sa social group or social institution, let's say social institution, paaralan. So kung ikaw ay estudyante, ikaw ay student, ano yung social role mo? Ano yung parte na dapat mong gampanan? Anyone? Meron po ba? Ano kaya yung dapat gampanan ng isang individual, ng isang student? Ano kaya yung social role niya as a student? Ayan, very good po. So the social role of a student, of course, is what? To study and to be obedient dun sa mga rules and regulation, existing rules and regulation. So, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn Scotto, worker. So, yes, halimbawa may performance task, di ba, na gagawin. Sometimes, that could be a social group. Di ba, may mga groupings sa school. Tapos, from that, alam mo na kung ano yung gagawin mo, halimbawa sa performance task. So, as a student, babalik ako, ano yung social role ng mga student? Of course, the social role is to study and tama, Ma'am Bibilin, it is to learn, of course. So, halimbawa naman kung kayo naman ay sa social institution na family, halimbawa, at ano yung sa social group na yon or social institution na yon, ano yung category mo or yung status mo. Halimbawa, ikaw yung father, tatay. Ano yung social role ng mga tatay? Meron po ba? When we do speak of social role ng tatay, so ano yung bahaging ginagampanan ng tatay? Ayan, very good. So yung role niya, 'di ba? Haligi ng tahanan. So of course, that's the social role. And ano yung kaakibat na responsibilidad when we do speak of haligi ng tahanan? Of course, responsible. Tama po, Sir Gerald. Responsible to provide, yung provider po. So of course, nagkakaroon na ng pantay na karapatan at pantay na trato when we do speak of yung mga responsibilidad sa loob ng bahay. So of course, nag-share na yung nanay, yung tatay. When we do speak of, they have shared responsibilities already. But of course, when we do speak of father, tama po si Sir Gerald, provider. Carl Gerard po. Salamat po. So that is what we mean when we do speak of social role po. Okay, so what we need to always keep in mind when we do speak of this one, yung social concept, our experiences, environment, and upbringing shape our self-concept. Hence, it is important to keep in mind that the self-concept, yung idea ng self-concept is always subjective or opinion-based. So, paano natin kinikilala yung sarili natin? Based dun sa physical characteristics. Say, for example, pag sinasabi natin sa sarili natin that I am beautiful, of course, it depends on how we were raised up. It depends on our environment. So some may say, pwedeng at the back of their mind, may masasabi sila about our physical characteristics. But the thing is, these aspects of self-concept is always subjective and even opinion-based, depending on the environment, depending on the experiences, and depending to the upbringing that will shape our self-concept when we do speak of the aspects of self-concept. So, kaya mapapansin ninyo, when someone represent themselves in front of the people, makikita ninyo na may kanya-kanya tayong pagpapakahulugan when we do speak of physical characteristics. May kanya-kanya tayong pagpapakahulugan ng maganda. Hindi ba? So, halimbawa, when we do speak of the concept of beauty, it's really relative, di ba? Depende kung ano yung environment na kinabibilangan natin. Sa Macy, ang sinasabi, ang konsepto ng pagiging maganda ay ano raw po? Yan, di ba? Parang sinasabi, parang we grew up to a notion of yung image ni Barbie. Maganda, matangos ang ilong, blue ang mata, bland, matangkad. However, in different societies, just like Philippines, just like African countries, of course, they have a different notion of the concept of beauty. So, iba naman kung paano nila binibigyan ng kahulugan yung physical characteristics or yung concept ng pagiging maganda. So, thus, we always need to keep in mind this, that our notion of self-concept is always subjective and opinion-based po. Okay, so what are the different characteristics of positive self-concept? So since our self-concept is always subjective and opinion-based, it could be, our self-concept could be negative or positive. So, kailan nagiging positive yung self-concept o yung hayagang pagkilala natin sa sarili natin? First, or number one, ano yung characteristics ng self-concept? Self-acceptance. So, when we do speak of self-acceptance, of course, we need, we need to accept our strengths, hindi ba po? Our weaknesses. So, in that way, nakikilala natin ng lubos yung sarili natin. So, when we fail to accept the things na meron tayo sa sarili natin, lumalabas na anong meron, there is a possibility that we try to misrepresent ourselves. Thus, accepting our strengths and even our weaknesses ay mahalaga for the development of a positive self-concept. So in that way, sabi nga ni Jean-Paul Sartre, isa sa mga kilalang existentialist philosopher. Magandang hapon po, Sir Mark Edward po. Isa nga sa mga sinasabi niya that existence precedes essence. So, when, kung kailan tayo magta-transcend beyond our essence, anong meron, it is to accept the weaknesses and even the strengths na meron tayo. So, I'll give you an example. What do you think? Ano kaya yung mga given physical characteristics ni Manny Pacquiao? Meron ba? I'll give an example of our 8th division champion sa larangan ng boxing. Ano kaya yung mga given physical characteristics ni Manny Pacquiao that gave him the reason to improve, yan, using self-acceptance and to excel in his endeavor po? Yan, very good. So si Manny Pacquiao po, hindi naman talaga siya ganun katangkad. So and that's a given, parang physical attribute or physical characteristic to most, if of course not all, to most of the Filipinos. Hindi talaga tayo ganun katatangkad. Even the Gilas Pilipinas, hindi ba po? So however, because of accepting that kind of self-concept or yung physical characteristics na meron tayo, that gave us the reason to transcend beyond. So, anong winork on? Halimbawa, ni Manny Pacquiao as well as yung Gilas team natin, ano yung winork on nila? Saan sila nakilala when we do speak of transcending beyond the limitations or accepting the weaknesses na meron tayo as Filipino? Ayan, very good po. So, saan tayo nag-work on? Si Manny Pacquiao po nag-work on sa speed, hindi pa po sa accuracy ng kanyang pagsuntok po, sa speed. Ganon din po ang ating Gilas Philippines team. Nakilala rin tayo sa how to run our plays, hindi po pa, how to execute our own play. in our own Filipino style, and even we work on our own speed. So one characteristic of a positive self-concept is to have self-acceptance po. Pangalawa po, self-confidence po. So when we do speak of self-confidence, when we accept our strengths and even our weaknesses, ano po yung magkakaroon tayo for when we do speak of self-confidence, it refers to our self-esteem. We boost our self-esteem po. So nagkakaroon po tayo ng confidence sa sarili natin kasi tanggap natin kung ano tayo. So when we do speak of self-confidence. Pangatlo, of course, the third one, characteristic of a positive self-concept is the feeling of security. So there is self-esteem, mataas po yung self-esteem natin, tanggap natin yung mga weaknesses and even our strength. Of course, we do not care kung ano yung sasabihin ng ibang tao. There is always a feeling of security as a characteristic of positive self-concept. So these are the characteristics of positive self-concept, or when we want to have a positive self-concept. Okay, so how do we develop our self-concept? Paano ba natin yan? Thank you po, Sir Carl. Self-worth po. So how we develop our self-concept? Paano ba natin dinidevelop yung self-concept natin? So, the first one will be, of course, be realistic with your self-perception. So, why it is important to be realistic with your self-perception, knowing ourselves, accepting our weaknesses. So, we need to be realistic of who we are before we represent ourselves with other people. So, it's really important to represent ourselves realistically and even have a realistic self-perception. So, why? Sabi ko nga kanina, when we do speak, if we do not accept our weaknesses, and if our weaknesses, there is a possibility to misrepresent ourselves. Then, we are trying to represent ourselves na hindi talaga tayo. So, in order for us to develop our self-concept, we need to be realistic of our self-concept. Second, ano po yung pangalawa? Pangalawa po, yan, be realistic with with our expectation. Yan, sabi po ni Ma'am Lynn Escoto, set realistic goals. Tama po, very good. So, this one, the second will be be realistic with your expectations. Sometimes our expectations, actually not sometimes, most of the time, our expectation can cause us pain. Minsan nasasaktan tayo because we expected too much. So halimbawa, kunyari, student, bakit hindi ka nako-content? There are some students na meron, bakit hindi kaya sila masaya dun sa 85 na nakuha nila? So why? Because there is a tendency na meron, they are expecting higher grades from that. So sometimes dapat po, we need to be realistic of our expectation. So saan po nakabase dapat yung expectation natin? When we do speak of being realistic with our expectations, saan po kaya nakabase yung expectation natin? Yan, very good po. Of course, we base our expectation sa sarili natin. Sa sarili rin natin nakabase, of course, with our own personal attribute. Diba? At sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin. So, halimbawa, nanood ka ng TV, bukas may exam. A student watch TV instead of studying. Naging complacent. Of course, we need to be realistic with the expectation. Anong meron? There is a greater chance na ma-perfect. Of course, there could be possible na magaling talaga yung bata. Bright, hindi ba po? So, but there are also possibilities na medyo malaki yung possibilities na mababa yung makuha or hindi ma-perfect yung exam. So again, when we wanted to develop our self-concept, we need to be realistic with our expectation. Again, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn Tantay, reality. Tama po. And third, ano po kaya, aside from we naging realistic na tayo sa expectation natin and even with our concept of self-concept. Yan, sabi ni Sir Jake Alfred Alvarez, self. Yan. Of course, having the will to change. This is the third step to develop our self-concept. So, we realize that these are our strengths and even weaknesses, or some other people could give us the idea nung mga bagay na dapat nating i-improve. Of course, the third na pwede nating gawin to develop our self-concept is having the will to change. So, dapat meron tayong will na magbago. So, when we realize some weaknesses na meron tayo, in order for us to transcend beyond kung ano nga yung limitations na meron tayo or kung ano nga yung weaknesses na meron nga tayo. So, this is the third. Okay, so let's have a quick recap po when we do speak of what we discussed on lesson 1. Balikan po muna natin. What do you call to the general perception of yourself with regard to your behavior, abilities, and unique characteristics? Bago po tayo pumunta sa susunod na talakayan. So, what do you think? Again, what do you call to the general perception of yourself with regard to your behavior, abilities, and unique characteristics? Meron po ba? I'll be reading comments from DepEd EdTech Unit po and DepEd Philippines po. Again, what do you call to the general perception of yourself with regard to your behavior, abilities, and unique characteristics? Ayan po, very good po. So, when we do speak of this one, it refers to self-concept. Very good po. So, self-concept. Next po. What aspect of self-concept refers to the part people play as a member of a social group? Again, what aspect of self-concept refers to the part people play as a member of the social group? So halimbawa, kung ikaw sa loob ng pamilya, kung ikaw ay daughter or ikaw yung anak, di ba? Ano kaya yung tawag dun sa bahaging ginagampanan mo within the social group? Yan, very good po. Social roles po. So when we do speak of the aspect of self-concept refers to the part people play as a member of a social group. At pangatlo po, what are the characteristics of positive self-concept? Ano po kaya yung mga characteristics nung yan? Thank you po, Ma'am Lynn Tantay. Thank you po for being active for this afternoon po. So, what are the characteristics of positive self-concept? Ano kaya yung mga characteristics ng self-concept? Or positive self-concept. Anyone po? Yan, very good po. So, first will be, ano po kaya? Self-acceptance po. Yan, very good po. Tama po, self-acceptance. Ano pa kaya? Aside from self-acceptance. Meron pa po ba? Aside from self-acceptance? Balikan natin. Tingnan po natin ulit. Kung baka nabibilisan po. Yan, ito po. So, these are the characteristics of positive self-concept. Yan, self-confidence, feeling of security. Ayan po. Yan, balikan natin. Yan. Thank you po, Ma'am Lynn Tantay. Self-acceptance. Ayan, feeling of security. Yan, Ma'am Gia Samson Flores, tama po, self-confidence po. Okay, so lesson 2. So, right after na nakilala na natin yung sarili natin, so matapos natin kilalanin yung sarili natin, ngayon po, dadako na po tayo doon sa sharing. So, sharing ourselves or yourself with others po. So, yan, sabi po ni Ma'am Gia, self-confidence po. Sabi po ni Ma'am Babylin, self-confidence po. So, now, kilala na natin yung sarili natin. We have the idea and of self-concept. Now, we are sharing ourselves with others. So, in sharing ourselves with other people, there are different levels of self-other interaction. So, ano-ano po yung mga level na to? Sabi nga in Introduction to Philosophy, when sharing our intersubjective state, so when we do speak of lalabas na tayo sa sarili natin, our interpersonal skills nga sa ibang term, there are different levels of self-other interaction. So the first level is awareness of the existence of others. So, ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Based dun sa level na yon, we are fully aware of other beings also existing. So, aware ka na nag-exist sila. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? Hindi lang ikaw yung tao sa mundo. So, there are also beings of equal entity, kapareho po ninyo, na nag-i-exist din. So, that's the first level. So, awareness of the existence of others. The second level of self-other interaction is the awareness of the self being seen by the others. So, aware ka na anong meron, nakikita ka nila. And sometimes, this level ay may effect sa atin. So, ano kaya yung epekto kapag alam mong nakikita ka nila? So, ano kaya yung epekto when we do speak of, halimbawa, alam mo, you are fully aware na nakikita ka nila, na may nakatingin sa'yo. So, halimbawa, sa classroom or could be sa isang lugar, anong epekto sa iyo kung alam mong tinitingnan ka nila, alam mong nakikita ka nila, alam nilang nag-i-exist ka? Ano kaya yung nagiging effect nito sa atin? Ano kayang ginagawa natin? Yan, very good po. So when we do speak of this level, ano yung mga possible effects? Sometimes we are very conscious, di ba? Nagiging conscious tayo. Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn, nagiging aware na sa kilos. Yes, tama po. Sabi ni Ma'am Bibili, nahihiya po. So we tend to be very conscious with how we act. Di ba? How we commit actions, how we behave, paano tayo umugali, paano tayo kumilos, and even paano tayo magsalita. Hindi ba? Minsan pag nagsasalita tayo, napaka-normal lang sa atin. Pero pag may ibang tao nang nakatingin at may ibang tao na alam nating nakatingin at nagmamatiyag sa mga kilos natin, we tend to be very conscious. So, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn nga, we tend to be aware na dun sa kilos natin. And third, when we do speak of the third level of self-other interaction, ito po, awareness of the self in others po. So, awareness of the self in others, meaning to say, you are fully aware that the other individual is also of equal entity. Meaning to say, yung sarili mo, you can place yourself under his or her shoes po. So, dito na pumapasok yung konsepto natin ng anong letter E po? Ano pang kayang letter E? Yung when we place ourselves under the shoes or under the position of other people. So, kaya nga sinasabi, di ba, sabi ni Confucius, do not do unto others what you don't want to do unto you. Ano kaya yun? Hello po, Ma'am Irma, di makulangan, Humid Cruz po. So, ano kaya yun? Anong letter E kaya yun? Na inilalagay natin yung sarili natin sa sitwasyon or sa sapatos. Ma'am Lynn, emotion, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn. Second letter is M. Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn. Bumawi agad si Ma'am Lynn. Salamat po. So, empathy, tama po. So, dito na pumapasok yung empathy. Di ba? That is why, in this third level, we also think of their, sabi nga ni Ma'am Lynn, emotions, yung nararamdaman nila. We also consider kung paano sila mag-iisip, ano yung mararamdaman nila. So, when we do speak of empathy, ayan, wag mong gawin sa iba kung ayaw mong gawin sa iyo. Tama, sabi ni Ma'am Bibilin, magdamit. So, this is awareness of the self in others. That's the third level. So, una, babalik tayo. Una, aware ka na nag-i-exist sila. The second level, you are fully aware that others ay nakikita ka, yung iba ay nakikita ka, your awareness of the self being seen by the others. And the third, awareness of the self in others, nakikita mo yung sarili mo sa kanila. So there is also already a concept of empathy. Okay. So when we do speak of sharing ourself to other people or sharing our intersubjective state with other people, dito pumapasok yung concept of self-disclosure or in other term, yung self-revelation. So when we do speak of self-disclosure, when we try to connect ourselves with other people, we tend to disclose ourselves with other people. So it refers to the process of passing information about yourself to someone else. So dito na you tend to pass information or you tend to share informations about yourself to someone else. So syempre yung una yung pangalan, hindi ba? So of course dapat kilala mo kung sino yung kausap mo. So that's one. Ano pa ba yung mga sinishare natin sa ibang tao when we tend to share ourselves with other people? So aside from pangalan, ano pa kaya? Meron pa ba? Meron pa kaya? Ayan, very good. Sabi, yan, you reveal information about themselves to other, about yourself to others. Salamat po, Ma'am Lynn, for really being active. I appreciated it. Maraming salamat po. Ayan, address, phone number. Ayan, tama. So, yan, sabi ni Ma'am Bibilin. Salamat din po, Ma'am Bibilin, sa pagiging active. Yan, experience, hindi po ba? So, we share experiences, di ba? So, sometimes, sino ba yung madalas una nating nakakausap? Of course, those people having the same experiences, having the same interest. Ayan, sabi ni Ma'am Gia, FB account. Tama nga naman. Di po ba? So, we share same FB account. Nag-accept tayo ng friend request. Di ba? So, and when we send and accept friend request, andun na yung full information about someone. Sabi ni Ma'am Lynn, yan yung opinion natin. Sometimes our opinion, we share it to other people. Ayan. So kapag umabot na tayo sa ganyan, we are trying to disclose ourselves. Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Joy, hello po, magandang hapon. Family background, tama po. And of course, our experiences. Okay, so what could be the pros and cons of self-disclosure? Ano ba yung mga mabuti at magandang epekto or could be the advantage and disadvantages of self-disclosure? So, when we do speak of the pros and cons of self-disclosure, one, it can lead to a better relationship with other people. So, hindi naman pwedeng, halimbawa, pangalan lang yung binanggit mo, tapos na nagbabay na tayo sa isa't isa. So, sometimes when we disclose ourselves, di ba, yung sa ibang tao, we tend to build better relationship with other people. So, mas lumalalim yung ugnayan natin sa ibang tao. So, di ba, halimbawa, if we wanted to share our intersubjective state with our best friend, yung pag-best friend na natin, di ba? Diyos ko, parang halos lahat na ng parte ng buhay ng isang tao, alam na nung kaibigan mo. So, why? Ano yung in effect nun? Of course, lumalalim yung pagkakaibigan or yung relationship ng isa't isa. Pangalawa, yan, it can improve a person's mental health. So, bakit nag-improve yung someone's mental health when we tend to self-disclose? Di ba? Minsan the best way to cure our emotions and even problem. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Roslyn Bernardino or Bernardo. It is to spill out, di ba po? So, it is to share our emotions, our problems sa mga kaibigan natin, sa ibang tao. Specifically, our friends, di ba? Yung mga close friend na meron tayo in order to have an ease of kung ano yung nararamdaman natin. So, in that way, we can improve our mental state or mental health. So, lalo ngayong panahon ng pandemya, hindi po ba? So, nasa bahay lang tayo madalas. So sometimes communicating with FB, sabi nga ni Ma'am Zia, yung FB account, by means of sharing or self-disclosure yung ibang mga experiences natin sa ibang tao, medyo nakakapag-release ito ng stress sa atin. So that's the second one. The third, it can promote self-understanding. Bakit daw po when we tend to disclose or reveal information with other people, nagpo-promote ito ng self-understanding? So, bakit kaya? Hello po, Ma'am Jasmine from SDO Surigao del Sur. Magandang hapon po. Bakit kaya? Bakit nagpo-promote ng self-understanding? Yan, very good. Because when we do speak of this third, yung pro ng pros na your advantage ng self-disclosure, kasi may mga bagay kang natututunan, may mga bagay kang nalalaman na hindi mo alam sa sarili mo. So sabi nga no, ng dalawang social psychologist na si Joseph Lapp and Harrington Ingham, yung gumawa ng Johari window, may mga bagay that there are also things and characteristics that we are not aware of ourselves. May mga bagay na hindi tayo alam sa sarili natin. At sino yung magsasabi nun? Of course, yung ibang tao, specifically our close friends. Diba? That they are fully aware of the things na meron tayo pero tayo hindi. So ang tawag dito, ito yung bagay na, ito yung tinatawag dun sa Johari window na blind spot. May mga bagay tayo na hindi alam sa sarili natin pero alam ng ibang tao. So why it can promote self-understanding? Kasi sila yung nakakapagsabi, nakikilala natin ng lubos yung sarili natin. Di ba may mga instances na may nagsabi, uy, ang galing mo palang kumanta. Uy, ang galing mo palang magsulat. So in that way, we can promote self-understanding. Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn, two heads are better than one. Ayun po. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Briggs from Dubai. Wow, umabot na po tayo sa Dubai. So, fourth, it can resolve and avoid conflict. So, when we disclose some information about ourselves, our current state, our emotion, yung nararamdaman natin, most of the times, it can really avoid conflict. So, bago pa mapunta sa conflict, hindi ba, nalaman na. So, halimbawa, sa bahay, yung mag-asawa. So, sometimes sharing, pag nagkakaroon ng disclosure, self-disclosure, nag-uusap yung mag-asawa, hindi po ba? Naiiwasan yung away. Hindi ba? Or, in that way, we can resolve self-conflict. So may alam ka na hindi niya alam and vice versa, sabi po ni Ma'am Lynn Tantay. Maraming salamat po. And what could be yung disadvantage? Ayon, ito na yung sinasabi kanina na pag hindi na in good terms. Of course, it can damage your reputation. To what extent? Of course, anong meron? Since we are disclosing ourselves, diba, yung sarili natin sa ibang tao, we give some information sa ibang tao. Sometimes, pag hindi na kayo okay, sabi nga, anong meron, it can damage your reputation. So, dahil alam niya na yung ilan mga experiences mo, pwede niyang sabihin yun, dito na masisira yung reputation mo as a person. That is why, ano yung sinasabi, what is the rule of the thumb, when we do speak of self-disclosure, we need to be very careful dun sa mga tao na anong meron pagsasabihan natin ng mga information tungkol sa ating sarili. So, dapat nakataas lagi ang guard natin. So, having friends, hindi naman dapat lahat alam na nila tungkol sa buhay mo. Of course, there are only a few individual na alam nila dahil best friend mo sila. Pero hindi naman pwedeng lahat best friend mo. Hindi ba? So, you need to be very careful also of disclosing information about yourself. So that could be the disadvantage. Ayun. Hello po, Ma'am Marjorie Avellanaris. Ayun po. Okay, so what are the tips about self-disclosure? Ito po. Ano yung mga pwede nating tips? Yan. 1, recognize your feelings. So sometimes when we tend to disclose, dapat mas maganda na alam natin kung ano yung sasabihin natin. So, sometimes having clear thoughts in mind and nare-recognize natin yung nararamdaman natin, in that way, we can disclose freely sa ibang tao. Diba sabi nga, you do not disclose yourself to other people when your emotions are unstable. So sometimes masyado kang masaya, masyado kang malungkot. So sometimes anong meron, there is a need to recognize once yung nararamdaman natin. Hello po, Ma'am Rubes Mangilaya. Second tip about self-disclosure, yan, we share our emotions also. So, ito parang hindi naman to heighten, but when we tend to disclose ourselves with one another, we need to be very true with our emotions. So sometimes parang, dyan sa picture, kahit nasaktan ka na, lagi lang nating sinasabi, okay lang ako. So, of course, other people, yung mga kaibigan natin, anong meron? Yan, pag happy at malungkot. So, anong meron? Kailangan banggitin pa rin natin, ipaalam natin yung emotion natin sa ibang tao. Halimbawa, sa mag-asawa, kung may mga problema ka or nalulungkot ka, you need to share your emotions. Hindi pwedeng okay lang palagi. Hindi ba? So, that's the second tip. Third, we need to speak clearly and calmly. So, dapat magsalita tayo ng maayos at mahinahon. Sometimes, when we self-disclose, when we have our self-disclosure, anong meron? The tone of our voice really matters. So, di ba? Halimbawa, iba yung dating kapag sinabi mong, yung tono nung sabi mo, hindi, okay lang ako. Parang, yan, may tonong ganon. Sa tono na, hindi, okay lang ako. So, sometimes, our communication, when we have clear communication and we speak calmly, mahinahon, ay nagiging daan para magkaroon ng maayos na communication sa isa't isa. We tend to self-disclose to other people. Fourth, anong meron? Sa pang-apat, choose the best time and place when we wanted to disclose information to other people. So sometimes picking the best place and the right time really matters also. Hindi po ba? So happy Thursday po, Ma'am Amelita. So we choose the best time and even place. So may mga bagay na sinasabi or may mga information about us na sinasabi at the right time and even at the right place. So, halimbawa nag-propose ka, nasa observation, kunyari, yung fiancé mo. Of course, there is the best time and best place for you to propose. Tapos nasa observation. Halimbawa, observation, classroom observation po. Ayun. So, we need to select the best time and even best place. So, when we do speak naman po, the next concept will be, when we do speak of perception or self-perception, it refers to our impression to other people and other things. So, sometimes, when we tend to share informations about other people, when we tend to share yung intersubjective states natin sa ibang tao, perception ay nakaka-apekto din. So, yung perception came from the Latin word perceptio, which means gathering or receiving. What are the informations we receive or we gather about a person or about other people? So, nakaka-apekto po ito. So, when we do speak of perception. So, what are the common mistakes about perception? So, paano ito nakaka-apekto? Yan. 1, you might be influenced by what is easily seen and understood. So, di ba, minsan, when we share intersubjective states, when we have self-other relationship or interaction, sometimes we tend to hesitate. Nagdududa tayo to interact with other people based on what we easily see at kung ano yung madali nating makita. So you might be influenced by what is easily seen and even understood. So kaya nagkakaroon ng epekto ito when we tend to interact with other people. Sometimes nga hindi na natin sinusubukan makipag-interact with other people. Next, number 2, common mistake. You might be holding on to your very first impression. Yung parang first impression last. Hindi po ba? So sometimes when we have our impression without experiencing the person, ba may sinabi sa'yo yung kaibigan mo about the particular person, without experiencing that kind of person, meron na tayong, kumbaga, may nabuo na tayong perception about other people. So, hindi na natin kinakausap. Sabi nga ng isang philosopher, si Edmund Husserl, we need to suspend our presumption to other people in order for us to have an authentic experience. So, bago ka pa nakita, na-judge ka na because what? Of that perception. Because we hold on that perception. So, alam mo, sa mga student, me as a teacher, anong meron? Hindi pa ako na-experience ng bata as a teacher. May impression na kagad, may perception na kagad sa akin yung bata pagdating niya ng grade level. Ano, grade 11 or grade 12. Natakot na kagad sila. Yun ako, si Sir Gilbert yung teacher. So, this could be a mistake when we speak of perception. So, sana we make an effort, a conscious effort to experience the person instead of clinging on to our impression. And third, you may be consciously or unconsciously favoring negative impression. So, yan, isa yan sa medyo nagiging problema when we do speak of perception. Sometimes, kahit may given na positive at negative characteristics, we sometimes people cling on to the negative impression. So, isang halimbawa niyan, parang yung psychological test na halimbawa, puting damit, 'di ba? Namansyahan ng itim. Pag tinanong anong napapansin ninyo, kadalasan. Yan, very good yung itim, 'di ba? Na tinta doon sa puting damit of all. So unconsciously, we tend to notice yung itim. So ganun din, unconsciously or consciously, we are favoring negative impression. So yan, yung first impression sometimes last, sabi ni Ma'am Lynn. Tentay po. Yun po. So, and our last concept for this afternoon will be empathy. So, ayan nga yung kanina nabanggit, empathy refers to the ability to look at things from another person's point of view. So, paano natin malalaman and how can we develop empathy? First, dapat may open-mindedness. So, dapat bukas yung isip natin. So, if we have a closed mind state, halimbawa, kung sarado yung isip natin, ano yung pwedeng mangyari? Hindi natin sila maintindihan. Say, for example, we have different religious differences or magkakaiba tayo ng reliyon. So, paano natin sila maintindihan? Paano magkakaroon ng religious tolerance kung sarado yung isip natin na dapat ang religion na isa lang ang mananaig? Hindi ba? So, dapat there should be an open-mindedness in order for us to coexist with one another. So, kailangan maramdaman din natin. Sa tingin mo ba kung yuyurakan mo yung religion ng isang grupo ng tao, matutuwa sila? So, of course, we need to have an open-mindedness when we do speak of empathy. The second one will be imagination. So, practicing empathy requires an imagination. You need to imagine what will you feel kung ikaw nakalagay dun sa sitwasyon na yun. So, halimbawa, nagagalit ka, mambabato ka, you need to imagine ano yung mararamdaman mo kung babatuhin ka ng ibang tao. So when you do speak of this one. Last one, there should be a commitment. So, yung commitment, when we do speak of empathy, it refers to the action na gagawin natin para anong meron to understand one another, para intindihin natin yung state, yung personal state ng ibang tao. Okay, so this one. So, let's see what you've learned for this afternoon about the second lesson. Give at least one self-other interaction. Sige nga po. Can you give at least one self-other interaction? Ayan, very good. Awareness of the self as seen by others. Ayan. That's the level 2. Ano pa kaya? Ayan, very good. Awareness of the existence of other. So, at pangatlo, awareness of the self with others. So, these are the 3. So, at least one. Salamat po. Okay, so next. What do you call to our impression to other people and other things? Ano raw yung tawag dun sa impression, sa ibang tao at sa ibang bagay po? Ano kaya yung tawag dito? Yan, very good po. Perception. Very good. Salamat po. Yan. So, perception. And third, what do you call to the process of passing information about yourself to someone else? Ano kaya yun? Yung process of passing an information about yourself to someone else. Yan, very good. Thank you po, Ma'am Lynn. Kanina po, perception. Yan, very good po. So when we do speak of this process, we are referring to self-disclosure or in other term, self-revelation. Yun. So always keep in mind po, anong meron, when we share our intersubjective states with other people, ano yung critical component kapag ibinabahagi natin yung sarili natin sa ibang tao or we tend to have self-other interaction, embracing our differences and our diversity is a natural component of it. So we need to embrace yung pagkakaiba-iba natin, of course, depending on how we raise, our experience, our different experiences po. So the critical component of self-other interaction or relating ourselves or building relationship with other people is to embrace our differences and even our diversity po. Muli po, ako po that ends our discussion for this day for Understanding Self and Society, Learning Strand number 5 po. Ako po si Tutor Gilbert po, ang nakasama niyo po ngayong hapon po. Patuloy po kayong tumutok. Ang susunod po, ang ating si Tutor Ariel po, ang magtatalakay ng digital citizenship po. Maraming salamat po at magandang hapon po. Hello po. Yun po, magandang hapon po. Salamat po sa pakikinig.
Good day, this is Teacher Rowan. I'll be your guide in exploring Google Apps for Education, for teaching and learning. In Google for Education, teachers can connect and collaborate easily while staying on task. It gives teachers the freedom to spend more time personalizing the learning experience and less time managing it. Students can learn essential skills such as 21st century problem solving, which they can use it in their future careers. As such, the accessibility features will also help and assist every learner to do their best work. Google offers different useful applications that we can use to connect education to technology. This will help our teachers as a 21st century educators to innovate and find ways on how to make teaching and learning more exciting, engaging, effective, and flexible to the demands of the society. Let's re-explore the education experience by discovering new angles to create, collaborate, and communicate as one. Para sa bata, para sa bayan, at para sa guro. Ang pagkatuto huwag gawing komplikado. Sulong edukalidad.
Cognizant to the needs of our learners, parents, and teachers, the Department of Education provided us with powerful tools for productivity that will allow us to foster critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, communication and collaboration skills to be compassionate, responsible global citizens. Join us and discover new ideas in our series of professional development training program with the ICTS EdTech Unit and Microsoft Education Philippines. Together, we will equip our learners and empower our fellow educators for a dynamic future. Para sa bata, para sa bayan, at para sa guro. Sulong Edukalidad.
Magandang araw! April Marquez po, ang inyong pretty ate sa EdTech Unit. Alam ba ninyo na may webinar o online training session ang EdTech Unit tuwing Sabado? Ang araw na ito ay nakalaan para sa ating mga mahal na kaguruan upang turuan sila ng mga bagong kaalaman at kakayahan sa paggamit ng makabagong software at applications para sa pinaka-epektibong paraan at lubos mapaghusay ang kanilang paraan ng pagtuturo. This is also a refresher session for our beloved teachers to enhance their skills in technology. Every Saturday, we will conduct webinar sessions for teachers about the use, advantages, and relevance of different blended learning software applications. Ang webinar seryeng ito ay magsisimula ng alas 9 ng umaga hanggang alas 12 ng tanghali para sa morning session. Magsisimula naman ng alauna at magtatapos ng alas 4 ng hapon ang afternoon session. You can watch us in our DepEd EdTech Unit Facebook page, Educational Technology Unit YouTube channel, DepEd Tayo, and DepEd Philippines. Kita-kits tayo tuwing Sabado!
Hello teachers, learners, and parents. Sir Jeff po, at your service. Alam nyo ba na meron tayong website na tinatawag na DepEd Commons? Ang DepEd Commons ay binuo upang gawing accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral dito sa ating bansa gamit lamang ang inyong mga smart devices gaya ng cellphones, tablets, at computers. Dito ay maaari nating ma-access ang iba't ibang learning materials mula sa Department of Education. Meron itong mga interactive materials, electronic self-learning modules, at instructional video lessons mula sa DepEd TV na tiyak na makatutulong sa pag-aaral ng mga mag-aaral galing ka man sa public o private school. Walang problema dahil welcome ang lahat dito. Para ito sa mga guro, magulang at mga mag-aaral mula sa kinder hanggang grade 12, alternative learning system o ALS, at pati na rin ang special education. At huwag kang mag-alala dahil kahit walang load ay maaari mong ma-access ang mga learning materials. Tama! Libre ito. Ang kailangan mo lamang gawin ay i-on ang iyong data at buksan lamang ang iyong browser at i-type ang commons.deped.gov.ph. Alam na ba ng iyong mga kasamahang guro o mag-aral ang tungkol sa DepEd Commons? I-share mo na ang video na ito upang matuto rin sila kung paano gagamitin ang DepEd Commons sa mabilis at napakadaling paraan. Muli, ito po si Sir Jeff at kita-kits po tayo sa DepEd Commons. Paalam!
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang itulay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang itulay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICTS Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del P. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na Pivot ang ginagamit sa ating itulay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Ayan. So, magandang gabi po. Ulitin ko po natin sinabi ko dahil hindi pa na ako naririnig. Wait lang po. Ayan. Sige po. O, take 2 po tayo ng live. Okay, so magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Tutor Jeff. So, ngayong gabi po, ako po muna ang inyong magiging tutor sa Alternative Learning System, and pag-uusapan po natin is all about digital citizenship. Kasi po si Tutor Ariel ay meron pong ginagawang training ngayon sa aming division sa Las Piñas. Ayan. So ngayon po, ang pag-uusapan natin is all about computers. Okay? So sa digital citizenship, napakalawak po ng topics natin. And aside from this, sa alternative learning system po kasi, as well as sa senior high school, yung pag-aaral po natin ng mga Microsoft Offices, yung mga software, ayan po ay pinag-aaralan din natin sa junior high school as well as sa elementary. So dito po sa ALS, pag-uusapan din po natin yan. Now, ang una po na i-discuss natin ay yung tinatawag natin na netiquette. Okay? So ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng netiquette? Pag sinabi natin na netiquette, we are talking about the proper etiquette in using the internet. Okay? So kaya po siya tinawag na netiquette. Okay po? So ngayon po mag-share po ako ng screen para masimulan na po natin yung discussion natin. So katulad nga po ng sinabi ko kanina, pwede po kayong magbigay ng inyong mga suggestions, comments, or feedback para mas maganda po yung discussion natin when it comes to the alternative learning system or digital citizenship. So ngayon po, nakikita ninyo ang aking screen. So ito po ay nanggaling sa verywellmind.com/10 rules of netiquette. Okay? So yan po ang ating source for our discussion. Actually po, ang netiquette, sobrang broad ng topic na to. Even kayo po, pwede po kayong mag-set ng sarili ninyong netiquette sa inyong mga bahay. And isa po ito sa mga nakakalimutan or hindi natin masyadong binibigyan ng atensyon. Kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang iba't ibang mga problems in using the computers and as well as the internet. So, kung kayo po ay isang mommy or daddy, ayan, dapat po mag-set po tayo ng netiquette sa mga anak natin para alam po nila kung paano nila gagamitin ang internet sa safe na paraan po. So ito po ngayon ang ating 10 basic rules of netiquette or internet etiquette. So sabi dyan, know your manners when using technology. Ayan. So the first one po is you have to make real people a priority. Okay? So ano ba yung sinabi doon sa make real people a priority? We all know that we have our virtual self. Okay? So katulad po ngayon, nakikita nyo ako with your cellphones, laptops, or computers. So nakikita nyo po ako virtually. Okay? Pero pag once po na katabi nyo ako, na hawakan nyo ako, then ibig sabihin, real people po ako. Okay? So ano ba yung nakikita natin dito sa picture? Ayan. So, magkasama sila physically, but makikita natin dun sa mukha ng babae na nakafocus yung, hindi ko alam kung boyfriend niya or asawa niya. Hindi kasi nila na-discuss sa akin yan eh. So, kung whatever yung relationship nila, nakikita naman natin na parang medyo disappointed yung babae because ang nangyayari is magkasama sila physically pero yung focus ng kasama niya is nandun sa mga virtual people. Okay? So, one good example of this thing is that, di ba, yung mga students pagkagaling sa school, we all know naman na hindi sila nakakapag-cellphone most of the time because they are not allowed to use cellphones in school. Okay? So, pagdating nila sa bahay, makikipagkwentuhan niya sa mga classmates nila. Malalaman ninyo na involved na kayo dito sa make real people a priority if you are living in one house. Tapos, kailangan pa kayong i-message sa group chat ng mami ninyo in order for you to know that you're going to eat your dinner. Okay? And another thing is, magkakaharap na po kayo sa table, nagsi-cellphone pa rin kayo. Okay? So, isa yan sa mga kailangan nating iwasan at para magkaroon tayo ng magandang behavior sa netiquette. We have to make real people a priority. Always take note that using cellphones, malayang emotions. Kaya nga, ngayon, very famous yung paggamit natin ng mga emoji kasi doon natin napapakita kung ano yung emotion that we would like to convey doon sa message natin. So, kapag halimbawa, nakasama natin yung family natin, kasama natin yung mga friends natin, we have to make time for them. Bitawan nyo po yung mga cellphones niyo, i-off muna yung mga data niyo, then spend time with them. Okay? You have to make real people a priority. Okay? Then, Another thing is use respectful language. So katulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, when we are sending information, wala tayong binibigay na emotion. Okay? So, like for example, nag-chat ka, then all caps yung ginamit mo. Ano ang magiging implication sa makaka-receive ng message? Diba? Ang magiging implication sa kanya is that you're shouting. Sinisigawan mo siya. Okay? And we also have to take note, we have to identify ano ba yung age bracket ng recipient ng message natin, di ba? Like for example, ginagamitan natin sila ng mga BTW, ganyan, di ba? Tapos you'll be sending that to an older person. So definitely, kung hindi sila familiar dun sa mga terms na yon, hindi nila maiintindihan. So hindi ka makakapagbigay ng tamang information or message. Then, when we say use respectful language, di ba, ano ba yung very common paraan natin mga Pilipino in order for us to show respect in our languages, di ba? So, ang ginagamit natin is po at opo. Ayan, katulad ni Sir Mark Edward. Ayan, so sabi niya, magandang gabi po, Tutor Jeff, listening and watching actively. Ayan, so gumamit po siya ng po. Di ba? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng po? It is a sign of respect. Maraming salamat, Sir Mark Edward. So, wag po natin kakalimutan yung paggamit ng po at opo if we're going to give messages, lalo na sa mga parents natin or sa mga lolo't lola natin, di ba? And always take note na dapat, kung hindi man kayo sanay gumamit ng po at opo, there are still a lot of ways on how you're going to give a message in a respectful manner. Okay? Next po, share with discretion. Okay, so sabi dyan, avoid sending naked sex pictures, drunk pictures, drug use pictures, or unedited home video. Okay? So, hindi lahat ng nakikita natin dapat sinishare natin. Hindi lahat ng memes dapat sinishare natin. Okay? We always have to take note that whenever we are using social media, whatever we are using na mga languages, whatever the memes that we are posting, pwedeng i-associate sa personality natin. Okay? And there are times na alam naman natin sa sarili natin na we are just doing it for fun. Okay? But it is not most of the time applicable. Kaya kailangan, if ever you're going to share something, if ever you have your problems, 'di ba? As much as possible, wag po nating i-post sa social media. Okay? 'Di ba meron ngang quotation noon na your problems require parang personal talk with friends or with your family, not social attention. Okay? Kasi hindi naman po lahat ng tao na nakakabasa at nakakarinig ay nakakaintindi. So, kailangan po nating i-consider yan most of the time. You have to select your friends. You have to select your group of friends lang na kung kanino mo lang pwedeng i-share sa kanila yung mga bagay-bagay sa family mo, because definitely they are the person who's going to be with you all throughout. Whether it's up or down, hindi ka nila iiwanan. Okay? Next, don't exclude others. So if you have an in-joke to share with one other person or a small number of people in a larger online group, send them a private message. Okay? Bakit? Ano ba nagiging implication nito? Halimbawa, meron tayong nakitang joke. Okay? Tapos yung joke na to, pinost natin, shinare natin. Siyempre, na-expect natin matutuwa silang lahat. 'Di ba? Then magugulat ka, meron kang isang friend na magre-react, then sasabihin niya na na-offend siya because of that joke. So, dapat maging careful tayo. As much as possible, kung alam naman natin that this joke is intended for a group of person lang, na alam mo naman na walang ma-offend, then you can do it. Kaya nga sa panahon ngayon, di ba, libre naman pong gumawa ng group chat. So, hindi naman kailangan lahat pinopost natin sa Facebook, yung mga kapitbahay natin na nabibidyo okay, ng lampas sa alas 10 ng gabi, hindi na po natin yan dapat ipinopost. Kasi, like, definitely, siguro kung 10 yung kapitbahay mo na nabibidyo okay at the same time, okay lang yun because they will not identify kung sino man doon. But definitely, ang problem dyan, pag yung 10 nagbibidyo okay na yun ay nag-react, there are always a lot easier and mas respectful na way that you can do in order for you to have the win-win solution. Okay po? So, mas maganda yon. Mas maganda na hindi ka nakakasakit ng kapwa mo and at the same time, hindi ka din nasasaktan. Okay? Next po, choose friends wisely. It is insulting to be dropped from someone's friend list on a social media site. Okay? Well, actually, dito po sa choose friends wisely, alam naman natin yan, di ba? All throughout, mula bata pa lang tayo, nagkakaroon na tayo ng iba't ibang set of friends. Kaya nga nauso yung mga reunion kasi iba yung friends mo nung nasa preschool ka, iba yung friends mo nung nasa elementary ka, nung nasa high school ka, hanggang sa nag-work ka na. Iba yung mga friends mo. But, definitely, sa mga tao na to, lagi nating iisipin na meron tayong matututunan from them. And at the same thing, sila din, meron din silang natututunan sa atin. So, you have to choose your friends wisely. Diba? Sabi nga nila, kapag pumipili tayo ng friends, you better look for the quality, not on the quantity. Okay? So, katulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, because not everyone is willing to listen. Kahit nga isa lang, okay na yun eh. Diba? Mas better yun. Kasi, yung friend mo na yun, at least alam mo, mapagkakatiwalaan mo, di ba? And sa social media, alam naman po natin na sobrang dami ng tao na nakakabasa ng mga posts natin. Sila yung mga tao na possible na magkaroon ng maling interpretation or tamang interpretation sa mga pinopost natin. Kaya as much as possible, we have to be very careful. Okay? Sabi nga nila, hindi naman lahat ng friends mo ay friends mo talaga. Di ba? So you have to be very careful with it. Next, don't email large files. Okay? So, sa panahon ngayon, ang dami-dami po natin ways kung paano mapapaliit yung mga files natin, di ba? Merong isang application. Ano application yun? Direct? Handbrake. Ayun. So, yung Handbrake na application, pwede nyo po yung search sa Google, siya po yung pwede natin gamitin para yung mga large files po natin, makompress po natin at pwede na po natin siya ma-send. Because, alam naman natin, di ba, although it is virtual, lalo na sa Pilipinas na hindi naman ganun kabilis ang internet connection natin, natatagalan tayong mag-send ng mga emails kapag ang lalaki ng files. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng email traffic. Kaya as much as possible, kung kaya po nating i-reduce, kaya nating bawasan yung size by using the Handbrake application, then mas better po yun para makapag-send po tayo ng mga emails natin. Next, you have to respect people's privacy. Okay? So, don't forward information sent to you without checking with the original sender first. Okay? So, hindi pwede na porket sinend sa'yo ng best friend mo, pwede mo nang i-share sa iba. You always have to consider their privacy. Okay? Baka kasi itong tao na to, kaya niya shinare to sa atin kasi pinagkakatiwalaan niya tayo. So, imagine, yung pag-earn ng respect and trust, wala naman siyang bayad. Pero, kapag once na nasira natin yon, definitely, ang hirap na po niyang ibalik. Diba? So, sabi nga po dito ni Ma'am Edna Alea, yes po, it's true. So, tama po yan. Very good po. Maraming salamat po sa lahat na nanonood. Then, according to Sir Mark Edward, make the mantra and practice palagi po. Be responsible netizens po. Ang sabi nga, think before you click. Ayun, salamat din po. Actually, yung think before you click po is very common na po yan sa ating lahat, di ba? We always have to take note na kailangan muna nating isipin bago natin i-post, bago natin i-click yung isang bagay. Pero aside from thinking, dapat i-feel din natin, di ba? We have to fill in the shoes of the person who's going to receive the information. Kailangan alam natin, pag sinabi ko ba to, or pag nabasa niya ba to, ano ba magiging effect nito sa kanya? So, kailangan i-identify po natin yun para at least aware tayo kung paano natin mapapakitunguhan yung mga taong importante sa atin. Next, fact check before reposting. Ayan. So, sabi po nila, kapag halimbawa magkakaroon tayo ng isang post and i-repost natin, katulad ng sinabi kanina, kailangan magpaalam tayo. Okay? Now, another thing is that hindi tayo dapat nagpapakalat ng fake news. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin na fake news, ito yung possible na isang balita na naipasa na naman, na naipasa. And definitely, there are also some news na ginagawa para makapagbigay ng maling information. So, ngayon po, like for example, with the use of the internet, hindi lahat ng nakikita natin sa internet is actually valid. Okay? Kailangan mag-conduct tayo ng fact check. Kailangan alamin natin, ito bang news na to ay totoo? Ito bang news na to ay relevant? Ito bang news na to ay talagang makakatulong sa atin? Because definitely, if hindi naman, then why share it? Diba? So as long as you know that the information is not going to be beneficial for others, then don't share it anymore. Okay? So yun po yung kailangan natin gawin. Iwasan natin ang
mga fake news na yan. I-identify natin, there are a lot of ways that you can do. Pwede kayo manood ng news sa television ninyo para ma-clarify ninyo ang isang bagay, or you can conduct researches, di ba? Pwede po yan. So, ayan, so sabi po ni Ma'am Zenaida Ildefonso Navarro, agree po ako sa inyo, Sir Jeff. Be responsible always. Ayan, thank you very much po. And shoutout po kay Patricia Gatchalian. Ayan. Next po, respond to emails promptly. Ayan, isa po yan sa mga pinaka-importante na ginagawa natin, di ba? Ganito lang po yan, kapag halimbawa na mahalaga sa iyo yung isang tao, di ba nire-replyan po natin kagad. Nung nagsimula yung mga text messages, alam naman natin, di ba, kapag boyfriend or girlfriend natin or pag-asawa natin, ang bilis natin mag-reply. Di ba? Bakit? Because we know that this person has a value on us. Binavalue natin siya eh. Ayaw natin siya mawala, ayaw natin siya masaktan. Kaya naman, mabilis tayo magbigay ng reply. Diba? So, ganun din po sa mga emails. Lagi po ninyong tatandaan na kapag in-email kayo, this person is actually waiting for a reply. Okay? So, kung halimbawa, nagbigay siya ng information or may pinakisuyo ka sa kanya, even the word thanks would be enough. Okay? So, pwede po natin gawin yun. Pwede tayo mag-reply ng, okay, thanks, keep safe, God bless. Kahit mga ganon, just to notify that person na na-receive natin yung information. And as much as possible, mag-respond po tayo agad. Kasi these are the emails that are looking for urgent reply. Diba? Kasi hindi naman nila i-email sa yun kung hindi yun importante. Okay? Because, definitely, isipin nila kung this one would require them na wala namang attachment, pwede naman po kayong i-text, pwede kayong tawagan, pwede kayong i-message sa messenger. But definitely, kapag emails yan, usually may attachments yan. Yan yung ginagamit natin ngayon. Okay? So, you have to respond to emails promptly. Okay? Next, update online information. Okay? So, don't leave inaccurate information online just because you can be bothered to update your website. Okay? So, kailangan po yung mga online information natin, i-update natin yan. Okay? Hindi pwede na in real life, married ka na pero sa virtual self mo, single ka. Okay? Because definitely, yung mga tao, pag nag-browse sila, diba? Magtataka sila. And as well as, syempre, dun sa, kung married ka man, syempre, nakaka-hurt yon sa other half mo, diba? You're married and you're single. Parang, hindi ka proud that you're married. Diba? So, those are the things that we have to consider. That's why we have to update our online information. Lalong-lalo na po yung edad natin. Okay? So, as much as possible, kailangan natin yan i-update. Kasama na rin dyan yung kung saan tayo nag-work, kailangan po natin yan i-update. Okay? Because definitely, alam niyo whenever you are applying for a job, there are some companies that they don't rely on resume alone. Okay? So, mapapansin nyo, they will be looking for your Facebook account. Okay, bakit? Because they are researching about you. Tinitignan nila ano yung mga pinost mo. You're applying for a new job. Titignan nila kung meron ka bang mga pinost tungkol sa previous job mo. Because definitely, if ever you're posting anything bad about your previous job, iisipin nila na, ay nako, baka pag hinire natin to, definitely tayo na yung susunod na magte-trend kung ganyan yung, kung i-hire natin siya. So definitely, kailangan mag-update tayo ng online information natin, and we have to be very careful in giving comments, feedbacks, yan. Because definitely, i-consider nila yon, lalo-lalo na kung ibibigay natin ang ating Facebook account. Next. So, definitely, a word from very well. Okay, so this one is from the site na lang po. Aside from this, marami pa po tayong mga netiquette na pwedeng i-apply. Ito kasi galing lang to dito sa mismong site. And isa sa mga dinidiscuss ko sa mga students ko is that we have to create a strong username and password. Di ba po, sa cellphone nga natin, kung halimbawa, if you are using yung parang mga, daw dito, yung mga letters sa ginaganon-ganon natin when it comes dun sa mga pattern, ayan, so very maingat tayo dyan. Kasi we all know na yung cellphone natin is a private thing. Ayaw natin na nakikita siya ng iba. So, definitely, nagsiset tayo ng magandang password. Ganun din sa ating mga social media accounts. Kailangan gumawa tayo ng strong na username and password. Okay? Then, your password can be changed din naman po every 6 months. Okay? So, kung nagpapalit kayo ng toothpaste every 6 months, dapat nagpapalit din kayo ng password. And always take note na wag po tayo gagamit ng mga password that are easy to guess. Okay? Number 1 dyan, birthday. Sumunod, nicknames. Sumunod, pangalan ng crush. Kapag bago crush, bago password. So definitely yun yung mga kailangan nating i-consider. Dapat if we are using special characters, mas better po yan. Ano po ba yung mga special characters natin? Ito yung mga symbols, ito yung mga @ sign, exclamation point, question mark, yan. Pwede po tayong maglagay ng ganyan sa ating mga password para maging strong po yung password natin. Then another thing is that isa sa mga ginagawa ng mga bata ngayon, well, definitely hindi naman lahat, okay, is yung pagbabago ng edad. Because we know that there are sites na hindi pwedeng i-visit ng mga minor, di ba? And upon verifying your account, kung nakalagay doon na 18 years old kayo, then you will be allowed to access it. Okay? So definitely, hindi tayo dapat nagde-declare ng maling age. And kapag nagsabi ang isang website that this site is intended for 18 years of age and above, then we have to stop browsing it. Okay? So, hindi siya beneficial for us. Hindi siya healthy for us. Okay? So, yun po. So, those are actually the examples of netiquette na kailangan natin i-consider in order for us to become very good digital citizen. Okay? So, lalo na tayo mga Pilipino, di ba? Kung mapapansin nga ninyo, ayan. So, kung mapapansin nga po ninyo nowadays, diba, parang ang nangyayari is, gino-joke natin, ginagawa nating meme yung mga kapitbahay natin na chismosa daw, tapos naka-CCTV. Because what they're trying to say is that, parang digital na din yung pagchichismisan. Well, actually, nangyayari din po yan sa ating mga social media accounts. Okay? So, but what we have to do is we have to be very careful. Lagi po nating iisipin that we have to fill in the shoes of those person that might receive the information. Isipin natin what will happen if ever they will receive this, kung mabasa man nila to. And lagi nating iisipin that respect begets respect, di ba? So kung nire-respeto mo yung sarili mo, nire-respeto mo yung iba, then they will respect you. Ganun din, okay? So ngayon naman po is pag-uusapan natin is the computer itself, okay? So para dun sa mga hindi pa ganun ka-familiar sa ating mga sa computer. Now, this one is an example of our desktop. Okay? So, the desktop po itself is actually, this is the interface na kung saan nakikita natin yung mga applications na ginagamit natin sa ating computer. So, ito po yung handbrake. Ayan. So, yan yung isa dun sa mga sinabi ko kanina. Now, we all know that computers are actually functioning depending on its process, di ba? Meron tayong tinatawag na input, process, and output. Okay? So ano ba yung mga nandun? Now, if ever we're going to search for it, so input devices, ayan. Then images, ayan. So makikita po natin that there are actually examples of input devices that you can use in your computer. Okay, so pag sinabi natin na input devices, these are actually the devices that we are using para makakuha tayo ng information. Okay, so since alam naman natin that computers don't have their feelings, ginagamit natin yung mga input para makapagbigay tayo ng information or makapag-send tayo ng information sa computer. Okay, then after that, yun yung gagamitin for the process. Now, one of the things that we are using right now is cell phones. And most of our cell phones are using the touchscreen device. Okay? Wait. Okay. So, we have a touchscreen. Sa mga cellphones na ginagamit natin ngayon, most of them are touchscreen. Okay? So, yung pag-click po natin dun sa mga items or sa mga applications that you can see on your phone or dun sa mga monitor natin, ang tawag dun is touchscreen. Okay? So, katulad po ng mga ganito, touchscreen yan. Once you touch the screen, magre-respond na kagad si device. Next, camera. Ayan, so alam na rin naman natin that cell phones have cameras, di ba? Para sa yung camera, it is used for getting images or ito yung ginagamit natin para makakuha tayo ng mga pictures, images, and videos. Okay? The next naman po is the scanner. Ayan. So yung scanner, ang ginagamit natin to para sa mga files natin, what we are going to do, yung mismong hard copy na file natin, ipapatong natin sa scanner, then kokopyahin niya na siya, then you're going to have your soft copy. Okay? Next po is the microphone. Ayan. So, familiar naman tayo sa microphone because a lot of Filipinos enjoy video videos, di ba? So, mahilig tayo kumanta, kaya alam na natin yung microphone. Ito yung nagka-capture ng sound. Next, mouse. Okay? So, para saan po ba ang mouse? Okay? We are using mouse para makapag-send tayo or makapagbigay tayo ng instructions sa computer. We have the left click and the right click. Okay? So, alam naman po natin kung para saan yung function yan. Okay? It is used for selecting as well as dragging yung mga files or mga applications na nasa computer natin. Next is the keyboard. Ayan. So, para saan yung keyboard? The keyboard is used para makapag-type tayo ng data or information. Okay? So, yun yung function ni keyboard. Now, yung keyboard po kasi is actually divided into two, di ba? We have the QWERTY keyboard. Ayan, kung makapansin ninyo, QWERTY. Kaya tawag dyan is the QWERTY keyboard. And on the right side is yung tinatawag natin na numpad. So, puro numbers yung nandyan. Kaya siya tinawag na numpad because it is consists of the numeric keypad. The next one is the webcam. Ayan, webcam. So, para saan po ba yung webcam? Well, actually, si webcam isa yan sa mga magandang innovation na meron tayo sa computer because if you can still remember, di ba, nung dati, kapag halimbawa meron kang relatives na OFW, anong ginagawa natin? We use snail mail. Di ba, nagsisend tayo ng messages or nagbibigay tayo ng letters natin tapos pinapadala natin sa post office. Then you have to wait for months para makuha mo yung sagot ng loved one mo. But, with the use of webcam and the technology of computer, anytime, di ba, sa panahon ngayon, pwede mong tawagan, pwede mong makausap through video chat, then we are using different applications pa. Like, for example, the Snap Camera para maging masaya yung kwentuhan natin. We can change our images, we can add some effects para maging maganda yung pakikipag-usap natin, make it more enjoyable. Kaya, hindi na natin ganun masyado nami-miss yung mga loved ones natin if they are going abroad. Kasi we have our webcam, we have our cellphone, we have the computers. Anytime pwede na natin sila makausap. Diba? The next one is the trackball. Okay. So the trackball is actually, yan po yung nakikita natin sa ilalim ng mouse natin. Okay? But there are also devices na known as trackball po talaga. So iniikot-ikot lang natin siya as kaya nga siya tinawag na trackball, then makapagbigay na tayo ng information sa kanya. It's actually the same thing na ginagamit natin dito sa mga mouse natin. So, gumagamit tayo dito ng trackball to scroll up and down. Okay? So, yan po yung isa sa example ng ating mga input devices. Now, when we say process, ano ba yung process? Now, the process po is actually the procedure wherein the computer will process the information. Hindi naman ibig sabihin kasi na pag once na nagbigay ka ng command kay computer, automatic gagawin niya. Okay? So, pinoprogram po yan. Kaya kung mapapansin ninyo, nowadays yung mga computers natin, pataas ng pataas, paganda ng paganda yung mga specifications. Because, nai-innovate natin yung technology, nai-innovate natin yung computers, nadadagdagan natin yung mga pwede nating ipagawa sa computer to make our lives easier, di ba? So, kaya po pag sinabi natin na process, what we're going to do is binibigyan natin si computer ng time para gawin or i-process yung information na binibigay natin sa kanya through the different programs na in-install natin sa kanya. Now, aside from input devices, meron din tayong tinatawag na mga output devices. Okay? But before we proceed with that pala, there are some common common mistake sa paggamit ng computer. Okay? So like for example, this one. Yan. O yan. So kung mapapansin ninyo, dito sa ating browser, ang tinype ko po is system unit. Okay? So, ano po lumabas sa picture? Okay. So, nakikita natin na ang lumalabas kapag bumili po kayo ng desktop or meron kayong desktop before, ang nakikita po natin ito. Okay? So, ano po ba tawag natin dyan? Karamihan sa atin, ang tawag dyan ay CPU or Central Processing Unit. Okay? Well, actually po, in reality, ang tawag po dyan ay System Unit. Okay? Hindi po siya CPU or Central Processing Unit. Okay? Ito po ay tinatawag natin na System Unit. Bakit siya tinatawag na System Unit? Because all the system of the computer are included inside that one. Okay? So, yan po ay tinatawag natin na System Unit. Try naman natin i-search ngayon ang CPU. Ayan. So, napansin niyo, di ba? Sa CPU ang lumabas, etong mga to. Okay? So, yan po ang CPU or Central Processing Unit. Hindi po yung kanina. Okay? Now, the Central Processing Unit is a part of the computer na sobrang sensitive at hindi natin siya pwedeng basta-basta buksan. Okay? So, as you can see, katulad po sa picture na to. Ayan. So, makikita nyo dyan sa picture na yan na ito lang si CPU or si Central Processing Unit. Hindi yung katulad kanina. And dapat, if ever you're going to open the Central Processing Unit, kailangan po knowledgeable tayo. Kasi isa yan sa mga pinakamahal na part ng isang computer because the CPU is considered as the brain of the computer. Okay? So, imagine niyo po sa tao kung walang brain. Ano magiging effect? Diba? Hindi tayo able of thinking or as well as pagalawin yung mga parts natin. Kasi walang magbibigay ng command. Diba? Walang magpa-process. Now, definitely, ganun din si computer. Okay? So, kung wala si CPU, wala siyang brain. So, paano siya magpa-function? Okay? Kaya po lagi natin tatandaan, yung picture natin kanina na malaki, na nahahawakan natin, na part ng computer is a system unit. And this one is the Central Processing Unit. Okay? Next. Another po na nagiging common na error din natin when it comes to using the computer is yung tinatawag natin na USB. Okay? So, yan. Di ba po kapag halimbawa nasa work tayo or sa mga classmates natin, may sisave tayo na file, ano sinasabi natin? Pero naman na USB. Di ba? Well, actually, sa ibang bansa po, hindi nila tinatawag yan na USB. Okay? Because we all know that this one is an example of a storage device. Okay? So, ano ba yung tawag dyan? Ang tawag dyan ay flash drive or thumb drive. Okay? So, hindi po siya USB because USB is actually a port. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin na port, ayan, ito siya. Ayan. So, yan po ang isa sa mga example ng USB. Port po siya. Saksakan po siya na part ni laptop or ni computer. Hindi siya yung mismong device. Okay? Because yung device na yon is sinatawag natin siya as pwedeng thumb drive, pwede ring flash drive. Okay? But definitely not USB. Okay po? So, we'll now proceed with the output devices. Ayan. So, we have here the different examples of output devices. Okay. So, syempre, very common na example ng output devices. Monitor. Bakit? Kasi dito natin nakikita kung ano ang ginagawa ni computer. Okay? So, this one is an example of an output. Pag sinabi na output, dito kayo makakakuha ng information. Pag sinabi na input, kayo ay magsisend ng information through that device. Okay? So, that's the difference. Kapag output, kayo na po ang magre-receive from that item or from that hardware na part. Okay? The next one is a printer. Of course, alam naman nating lahat, di ba? Kung ano ang itsura ng isang printer. For sure, nakakita na po kayo ng printer. Okay? So, the function of the printer is actually to give you a hard copy of the information na tinype ninyo, whether sa Microsoft Word or whether kinopy-paste po ninyo sa inyong browser. Then, If you would like to have it in a hard copy, pag sinabi natin na hard copy, ito yung printed copy, then you're going to use a printer. Okay? Yan. This one is actually a plotter. Pag sinabi natin na plotter, ito po, it's the same thing with the printer, but the difference is, ginagamit siya for tarpaulin printing. Okay? Okay. So, wait lang po. Yan. The next one is the multimedia and screen projector. Ayan. So, para saan po ba yung multimedia and screen projector? Okay, so ito yung mga usual na ginagamit natin sa klase. Kapag halimbawa may papapanood tayo na video or may bibigay tayo na presentation, then there is a large number of students who's going to view. So, gumagamit po tayo ng multimedia and screen projector. So, sa mga cinemas, ito din yung ginagamit nila, but they are using the high-end version ng mga screen projector. The next one po is speaker. Ayan. So, sobrang importante ng speaker, di ba? Alam naman natin na ginagamit natin yung speaker para makarinig tayo ng sound. Di ba? Kasi kapag halimbawa na you're going to watch a horror film, di ba? Imagine ninyo kung wala siya, as in walang sound kahit papano. Kahit yung gulat na effect hindi nyo mararamdaman. Even yung mga movies, di ba? Di ba may mga movies na wala silang script, wala silang sinasabi. Pero kung mapapansin ninyo, sinasabi nila na wala siyang sound, but there are sound effects. 'Di ba? Kasi kapag ang isang horror film ay walang sound effect, hindi siya magiging horror. Kaya as much as possible, kapag halimbawa gusto natin makarinig ng mga sounds, then we will be using speakers, 'di ba? Next is the headphone. Ayan. Of course, kapag gumamit tayo ng speaker, loud sound yon, everyone can hear. But with this one, through the use of the headphone, ang makakarinig lang ng sound is kayo lang mismo. Okay? So, we are using it kapag halimbawa, you're going to have calls. Yan. Yan. We also have the sound card. Okay? So, the purpose of the sound card is they are the output devices of computers that are installed in a computer to produce computer sound. You need to have a sound card, whether internal or external. It allows you to generate higher quality. Okay? So, kung halimbawa nga po, ganun, you're watching a horror film, naglalag, so paputol-putol, magugulat ka na lang, tapos yung eksena na inaantay mo. Kaya as much as possible, kung meron tayong sound card, lalong-lalo na if you are playing games, sobrang mas ma-attract kayo dun sa mga nilalaro ninyo na games kapag maganda po yung sounds. Okay? We also have video card. It's the same thing with the sound card, but the sound card focuses on the sound, and the video card focuses on the graphics of the video, kung gaano magiging kaganda yung effect niya. Well, actually, aside kay video card, meron na tayong ginagawag na graphics card. So, they work hand in hand para mas maganda yung kulay na marireceive natin. Next, GPS. Okay? So, it's a space-based satellite navigation output. I'm sure lahat naman kayo, alam nyo naman ang application na Waze, di ba? So, ginagamit natin siya for looking for location para maging guide natin, maging map natin. Okay? We also have the speech synthesizer. Okay? So, special output device consisting of many modules that provide the ability to convert typed text into sentences voiced by a human voice. Okay? So, ang ginagawa po natin dito is we're going to input ng text, itatype natin kung hindi natin gusto yung boses natin na yun yung naririnig ng audience natin. Then, we're going to type those words. Then, definitely, si speech synthesizer will convert it into a file na merong ibang nagsasalita for us. Okay? So, those are actually the examples of output devices na nagagamit po natin sa ating computers. Okay? Now, when it comes to digital citizenship, there are a lot of things that you have to consider in order for you to become good Filipino digital citizens. Okay? So, number one is, yun, maging aware po tayo sa netiquette. Kailangan familiar tayo with the etiquette that we have to follow whenever we are using the internet. The next one is, kailangan familiar din tayo sa mga devices na ginagamit natin. Okay? Because we have to take care of it. Alam naman po natin na sa panahon ngayon, if ever you would like to have a gadget na medyo high-end, medyo kailangan mo talaga siyang gastusan. So, it is good that we are familiar with the things that we are using. Okay? So, kapag nag-combine po yung dalawang yan, then definitely, medyo mas magiging madali para sa atin na magkaroon ng maayos sa pamumuhay or to become very good digital citizens. Okay? So, for the remaining minutes, pwede po kayo mag-post ng inyong mga questions, pwede po kayo magpa-shoutout. Ayan. So, kung mapapansin naman po natin, it's turning 7 o'clock and still we have 65 viewers. Ayan, all around the Philippines. Maraming salamat po sa pagtutok ninyo dito sa Itulay. Maraming salamat po sa pagsuporta ninyo sa DepEd TV and as well as sa lahat ng ginagawa ng Department of Education para magawa po natin na yung pagkatuto ng ating mga anak o yung mga bata sa bahay natin, hindi siya ma-stop because we all know that learning is a continuous process, diba? So, I hope na nakatulong po kami dito sa inyong lahat, dito sa Itulay. Natulungan namin kayo na gabayan ng inyong mga anak sa pagsagot ng mga learning modules sa makikita ninyo sa DepEd Commons. And as well as, kung wala po kayong ginagawa at naglilibang kayo din, tumutok po kayo dito sa Itulay. Dito sa aming DepEd EdTech Unit FB page, pwede rin po sa YouTube, sa DepEd Philippines, sa DepEd Tayo, at doon po sa iba pang mga sites that are sharing the lessons of the Department of Education. Again, so maraming salamat po. If ever wala na po tayong questions, I think we're good to go. Asan na yung ating director? Ayan. So again, maraming salamat po sa lahat na nakatutok dito sa ALS na Itulay natin for tonight. And sa mga susunod na araw, expect nyo na po na makikita nyo na po si Tutor Ariel. Again, ako po si Tutor Jeff, ang inyo pong naging tutor para sa gabi na to for digital citizenship.
Cognizant to the needs of our learners, parents, and teachers, the Department of Education provided us with powerful tools for productivity that will allow us to foster critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, communication and collaboration skills to be compassionate, responsible global citizens. Join us and discover new ideas in our series of professional development training program with the ICTS EdTech Unit and Microsoft Education Philippines. Together, we will equip our learners and empower our fellow educators for a dynamic future. Para sa bata, para sa bayan, at para sa guro. Sulong Edukalidad.